He rescued the enemy's child. Now the alien queen wants him for herself. The planet's surface was jagged, harsh, and painted in shades of gray and brown, a wasteland of rock and ash. Captain Aaron Voss crouched behind a jagged boulder, peering through the scope of his rifle. Below, the Valian patrol moved with deadly precision, their tall, insect-like bodies glinting under the pale sun. Humans had been fighting the Valians for years, and every encounter was a reminder of how different these aliens were: faster, stronger, and far more ruthless than any opponent Aaron had faced on Earth. But today, Aaron wasn't thinking about the battle lines or the mission reports. His mind was fixed on something else, a faint cry that had pierced through the wind and the dust. He motioned for his squad to hold position, lowering the scope and listening closely. The cry came again, soft, pitiful, unmistakably that of a child. He frowned. There shouldn't have been any civilians here. This planet was a war zone. Every being left alive should have either been a soldier or long dead. Without hesitation, Aaron sprinted across the rocky terrain, ignoring the caution his training screamed at him. The cry grew louder, more desperate, until he reached a narrow canyon where the shadows hid movement. There, huddled behind a jagged stone, was a small figure, pale blue skin, large amber eyes, and limbs too thin to support the creature's own weight. It was a Valian child. The child froze as Aaron approached, eyes wide with fear. He raised his hands slowly, showing no weapons. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said in a calm, steady voice. His words carried across the wind, yet the child barely flinched. Years of stories about humans being killers had already made the child distrustful. Aaron crouched lower, keeping his hands visible. "You're safe now. I'm going to get you out of here." The child blinked, then whimpered. The sound tugged at something Aaron hadn't expected. Soldiers were trained to suppress empathy, to focus on missions and survival, but he couldn't. He couldn't just leave a defenseless child behind. Movement in the canyon walls alerted him. A group of Valian drones had detected the noise. They were sleek, four-legged hunters designed to locate and eliminate targets quickly. They didn't hesitate. They charged toward the canyon. Aaron's instincts kicked in. He grabbed the child, lifting them into his arms. "Hold on," he told the small figure, ignoring the protests of his squad over comms. He fired his rifle, taking down the first drone with precision. Two more advanced toward him, their claws scraping against the stone. He sprinted, using the canyon walls for cover, calculating every step to avoid both the drones and the deadly debris. The child clung to him, shaking, silent but terrified. Aaron could feel the rapid heartbeat, the fear radiating from the small body. He whispered, "I won't let them hurt you. Trust me." Minutes later, he found a narrow crevice where the drones couldn't follow. He pressed himself against the rock and crouched low, breathing heavily. The child finally looked up at him, eyes wide and filled with confusion. "Who are you?" the child asked in a voice barely audible. It was accented alien, but Aaron understood enough. "I'm Aaron. You're safe now. I'm going to take you somewhere you can be protected," he said softly. "Can you walk if I hold you?" The child hesitated, then nodded. Aaron lowered them to the ground carefully. They stumbled a few steps but kept moving, following him blindly. He led them through narrow paths, avoiding patrols and drones, moving deeper into the rocky terrain where sensors were less likely to detect them. Every step felt like a gamble. One wrong move and both of them could be trapped or killed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the rocks cast long, jagged shadows across the ground. Aaron's comms crackled. "Captain, what's your status?" He replied quietly, keeping his voice low. "I've got a child, need extraction point, avoiding patrols." The voice on the other end hesitated, then said, "Copy that, but that's risky. We don't know the Valians' plans. If they find out, it could escalate everything." Aaron clenched his jaw. "I don't care. I can't leave it behind." The squad went silent, unsure how to respond. In war, there were rules, and human soldiers were expected to follow orders without questioning the bigger picture. But this wasn't just another mission. This was life. Night fell, cold and unforgiving. The wind whipped dust into their faces, and Aaron's face streaked with grime. Still, he pressed on, carrying the child or helping them walk when their legs gave out. They shared no words except for the occasional frightened question from the child, which Aaron answered as best he could. Hours later, they reached a hidden ridge where Aaron had previously scouted an abandoned human outpost. It was crude, barely intact, but it was enough. He helped the child inside, setting them down gently. "Rest," he said, offering a small packet of rations. The child hesitated, then took it, eyes cautious. Aaron sat nearby, scanning the horizon. The drones hadn't followed this far, and he allowed himself a brief sigh of relief. The child finally spoke again. "Why did you save me? You are human, we are enemies." Aaron smiled faintly, tired but resolute. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because one day you'll understand that humans can be more than soldiers and weapons. We can care. We can protect." The child looked down at the rations, then back at him, eyes wide with disbelief. Aaron shook his head slightly, knowing that trust wasn't built in a moment. It would take time, and time was something he didn't have much of in this war. Hours passed in silence. The night deepened, filled with distant sounds of drones and patrols moving across the rocky plains. Aaron didn't sleep. He stayed alert, keeping watch over the child, calculating escape routes, and preparing for the possibility of a Valian counterattack. By dawn, he knew he had to move again. The child had grown calmer, emboldened by Aaron's steady presence, but they were still vulnerable. Together, they would have to navigate the dangerous terrain back to human lines. As the first rays of sunlight crept over the horizon, painting the canyon in shades of gold and orange, Aaron picked up the child once more. He felt a strange mixture of fear and hope. Fear because the enemy was relentless, and hope because, for the first time in years, he felt that maybe, just maybe, this act of mercy could change something, not just for him, or for the child, but for the humans and the aliens alike. The journey ahead would not be easy. There would be dangers he could not foresee, decisions that would test his morals, and moments where the line between right and wrong would blur. But as he climbed the ridge and looked out over the expanse of jagged rocks and distant patrols, Aaron knew one thing with absolute certainty. He had made a choice, and he would stand by it, no matter the cost. For the child in his arms, for the humanity he believed in, and for the hope that even in the midst of war, courage and compassion could survive. And somewhere, deep within the Valian Empire, whispers of a human who had dared to save one of their own began to spread, reaching ears that had never before considered the possibility that humans could be heroes, not just enemies. Aaron didn't know it yet, but this single act, saving an enemy's child, would set into motion a series of events that neither human nor Valian could have predicted. A story of trust, courage, and the unexpected power of empathy was beginning, and he was right at its center. He tightened his grip on the small body, whispered once more, "We're going to be okay. I promise," and stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever the day would bring. The news of Aaron Voss saving the Valian child traveled faster than any battle report. In the Valian royal court, whispers spread like wildfire. The Valian Empire prided itself on strength, discipline, and absolute control. To hear that a human, the enemy, had saved one of their own was both shocking and troubling. Queen Zareth sat upon her elevated throne, her tall, regal figure illuminated by the soft glow of the chamber. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, had been fixed on the reports streaming in from various scouts and informants. The images were crude, captured by drones, a human carrying a small, injured child through dangerous terrain, evading Valian patrols with uncanny skill. The Queen's advisors, nervous and cautious, spoke quickly. "Your Majesty, this human, he should have been killed. We should have destroyed him. Instead, he has the child in his arms." Zareth leaned forward slightly, her eyes narrowing. "And yet he survives, he does not flee, he protects. That is unusual." An advisor cleared his throat. "It is more than unusual, my queen, it is dangerous. He challenges the order we maintain. If he is allowed to live and teach the child, who knows what could happen?" The queen's gaze drifted to the hollow projection of the child. Small, fragile, and pale blue, the Valian child blinked up at the human with a mix of fear and curiosity. It was clear even in the recordings. The child had begun to trust him. Zareth's mind raced. She was a ruler trained to see threats and opportunities with equal clarity. This human, Aaron Voss, represented both. He was a threat because he broke all their rules. He was an opportunity because he could teach them something about humans, something no one had dared imagine. "I want him brought to me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I will see this human myself," the advisors protested immediately. "Your Majesty, that is highly irregular. To approach a human in the field, they are unpredictable. We could lose the child, the human, or both. It could spark a greater conflict." Zareth raised a hand, silencing them. "I am aware of the risks, but I wish to understand. This human is unlike any other. I want to see his strength, his mind, perhaps even his heart." Meanwhile, Aaron had led the child to a safer location. The canyon ridge provided cover, but the landscape was still harsh and unforgiving. He knew they could not stay long in one place. The human extraction team would have to arrive soon, or they risked being discovered. The child, whose name Aaron had learned was Kale, sat quietly, holding the small rations Aaron had offered. Kale's amber eyes were still wide with fear, but there was a spark of curiosity now, too. "Why did you save me?" Kale asked again, breaking the silence. The voice was soft, almost hesitant. Aaron crouched to meet the child's gaze. "Because I knew someone had to. You didn't ask to be here, and you didn't deserve to be in danger. I couldn't just leave you." Kale considered this, tilting their head. We thought humans were cruel, that they only fight." Aaron shook his head. "Not all humans are cruel. Some of us fight to protect, not destroy. And some of us see life as something worth saving, even if it belongs to our enemies." Kale was silent, absorbing the words. For the first time, the child began to understand that humans were more than the monsters the stories had warned them about. Hours passed. The sun rose high, beating down on the jagged rocks and barren terrain. Aaron knew they had to keep moving. Every hour spent in one place increased the risk of being discovered. He helped Kale to their feet. "We need to keep going. The extraction team should be waiting not far from here." Kale nodded, wobbling slightly but staying close. The child's trust in Aaron had grown, and that trust gave Aaron more courage than he had felt in months. As they moved, Aaron's comm device buzzed quietly. He activated it, listening for the faint voice of his team. "Captain, status report," said the familiar voice. "We're moving. The child is safe, but the terrain is rough. Expect a slight delay," Aaron replied. The voice hesitated. "Captain, this human saving a Valian child, it could change everything. The Queen may intervene." Aaron frowned. "Then we need to move faster." On the other side of the galaxy, Queen Zareth was already making preparations. She would travel herself, taking a small contingent of trusted guards and envoys. Her plan was precise. Approach the human without alarming him, observe, and decide whether he could be trusted. She had never felt curiosity like this before, not for an enemy. The journey through the canyon was treacherous. Aaron led Kale carefully, avoiding unstable rocks and deep crevices. The child's small hands clutched his arm tightly, and Aaron felt a sense of responsibility heavier than any weapon he had carried in battle. Every patrol they passed unnoticed, every drone they avoided, strengthened his resolve. Finally, as the horizon stretched out ahead of them, the extraction point came into view. It was an abandoned landing site, old and partially covered by rock formations. Aaron signaled for Kale to stay low and moved forward, scanning the area for threats. Suddenly, movement flickered at the edge of his vision. Figures approached, not human, not fully alien envoys sent by the Queen. Aaron froze, instinctively shielding Kale behind him. The figures stopped a short distance away. They made no aggressive moves, but their presence was imposing. A voice, calm and melodic, echoed from the group. "Captain Aaron Voss, I presume?" Aaron's heart skipped a beat. The voice carried authority, power, and curiosity all at once. He stepped forward slowly. "Who wants to know?" The figure emerged from the shadows. She was taller than most humans, with a regal bearing and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Her skin was pale and luminous, her features sharp but elegant. Aaron recognized her from the reports, Queen Zareth herself, though she was clearly traveling in a form designed to minimize provocation. "You saved the child," she said, her voice steady. "That is a rare act, not common among your kind." Aaron nodded cautiously. "I saved a life, that's all, no matter what species it belongs to." Zareth studied him carefully. "You are brave and reckless, but more than that, you are different. You do not see the child as a tool or as leverage. You see it as someone who matters." Aaron met her gaze, unwilling to be intimidated. "Yes, that's exactly what I see." The Queen's expression softened slightly, though her posture remained regal. "Few humans act like you. That is why I am here. I need to understand you and your intentions." "You have already changed my perspective on humans." Aaron didn't respond immediately. He had faced countless enemies, but the calm, analytical gaze of a ruler was something entirely different. It was challenging, assessing, probing for weakness, but he did not flinch. He had saved Kale, and he had done the right thing. That was enough. Zareth glanced at Kale, who peeked from behind Aaron, wide-eyed and unsure. "And the child, he seems to trust you," she noted. Aaron placed a hand lightly on Kale's shoulder. "Yes. It takes time to earn trust, but once it is earned, it is stronger than fear." Zareth tilted her head, intrigued. Perhaps there is more to humans than I have been told. Perhaps there is even hope. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Hope. For understanding, she said softly. For connection. For the possibility that two enemies can see the value in one another's lives. For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind swept across the rocky plain, carrying the scent of dust and ash, and the tension between them was palpable. Finally, Zareth stepped closer. I wish to see how far your commitment goes, she said. I will travel with you from a distance, unseen if necessary. I want to witness how you protect the child, how you lead, and how humans like you act in the face of danger. Aaron felt a mixture of caution and curiosity. He had faced alien commanders before, but never one who approached him not as an enemy, but as an observer, almost as a student of his courage. Very well, he said slowly, but I warn you we will face danger. If you are discovered, it could provoke conflict. Zareth inclined her head. I understand, I am willing to take the risk. And so their fates became intertwined. A human and a Valian child, followed silently by a queen who had never felt such intrigue for an enemy, began a journey together, one that would test courage, morality, and the very boundaries of trust. Aaron did not yet know that this meeting would change everything. The child's survival had already begun to reshape perceptions across two civilizations, and Queen Zareth, with all her power and cunning, would soon learn that humans were capable of far more than she had ever imagined. As they moved toward the extraction point, Aaron glanced at Kale, who looked back at him with tentative trust. Somewhere in the distance, hidden but watching, Zareth followed. The seeds of a new understanding and perhaps an unlikely alliance were being sown. Aaron whispered to Kale, "Stay close. We have a long journey ahead, but I promise you you're safe with me." The child nodded, eyes wide, and Aaron knew that this simple promise, fragile as it was, would become the foundation of something much larger. A story that would reach far beyond the canyons, far beyond the battlefield, and perhaps even change the course of the war itself. Sun hung low over the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the rocky terrain. Aaron Voss moved carefully, guiding Kale through narrow passes and over unstable rock formations. The child had grown more confident since the rescue, though fear still lingered in their amber eyes. Every now and then, Kale would glance at Aaron and offer a small, uncertain smile. Aaron returned it with a reassuring nod. They had been traveling for hours, moving closer to the extraction point where human reinforcements would meet them. But the journey was far from over. The Valian patrols were relentless, scanning every ridge and canyon with advanced sensors. One wrong move could mean discovery, and Aaron knew that if the Valians realized the child was safe with a human, the consequences could be catastrophic. Unseen by them, Zareth followed from a distance. The Queen's sleek, shadowy craft hovered high above the canyon, cloaked by advanced stealth technology. She observed the human and the child with careful scrutiny, fascinated by the way Aaron moved, the way he carried Kale, and the quiet authority in his voice. Aaron paused at the edge of a steep cliff, scanning the path ahead. Kale had stopped beside him, looking nervous. It's too steep, the child said softly. I can't climb that. Aaron crouched to Kale's level. We'll do it together. I'll guide you. You don't have to be afraid. Kale hesitated, then nodded, trusting the human despite their fear. Aaron grabbed Kale's small hands and began helping them ascend the rocky slope, carefully calculating each step. The climb was slow and treacherous, but the child followed, gripping tightly and taking courage from Aaron's steady presence. From above, Zareth watched closely. She could see the child's fear, the way Aaron reassured them, and the patience he showed at every step. It was unusual for a human to act with such calm and determination, especially in the presence of danger. Most humans would have panicked, abandoned the child, or tried to escape alone. But Aaron's actions were deliberate, controlled, and deeply humane. As the sun dipped lower, shadows stretched across the canyon floor. Aaron finally helped Kale reach the top of the cliff, both of them panting from the exertion. The view ahead was a sprawling plateau, littered with jagged rocks and scattered debris from old battles. It would provide some cover for their next move, but it was also exposed. We need to keep moving, Aaron said, scanning the horizon. The extraction team will be waiting just beyond that plateau. Stay close and don't let go. Kale nodded, gripping Aaron's hand tightly. The bond between them had grown in a few short hours. Trust was no longer fragile. It was developing into something strong, almost unbreakable. Aaron could feel it, and he knew that protecting this child was more than a mission, it was personal. As they descended the plateau, movement flickered in the distance. Aaron froze, raising a hand. Kale instinctively ducked behind him. Two Valian scouts appeared, their long limbs moving with unnatural speed. They had spotted movement and were moving directly toward them. Aaron's mind raced. He needed a plan quickly. He scanned the terrain, noting loose rocks and narrow crevices. Then, with a calculated leap, he hurled a rock toward a nearby outcrop. The rock bounced loudly, drawing the scouts' attention. "They're distracted," Aaron whispered. "Now run." He guided Kale through a narrow canyon, their small bodies pressed against the walls as the scouts pursued. Aaron used every trick he knew, jumping over ledges, ducking into shadows, and slipping through narrow passages too small for the Valians to follow. The child followed his lead, fear pushing them forward but trust keeping them close. Hours later, they reached the extraction point, a small clearing with a human hovercraft hidden among rocks. The craft's engines were silent, but the controls were ready. Aaron helped Kale aboard, making sure the child was secure before activating the engines. As they lifted off, Aaron glanced down at the canyon below. The Valian scouts were still searching, but they would not follow. He exhaled, feeling a rare sense of relief. For now, the immediate danger was behind them. Unseen above, Zareth observed the entire sequence. She was impressed, not just by Aaron's courage, but by his ingenuity. The human had used the terrain, the child's instincts, and sheer quick thinking to evade capture. It was a display of intelligence and adaptability that few humans could match. Back in the hovercraft, Aaron checked Kale's condition. The child was pale but alert, gripping a small blanket tightly. "You did well," Aaron said, smiling. "You trusted me, and that made all the difference." Kale looked up at him, eyes wide. You really care," Aaron nodded. "Yes, I care about your life, and I care about doing what's right. That's what humans can do. We fight, we protect, and sometimes we save lives that others would ignore." Kale's eyes shone with a mixture of awe and relief. For the first time, the child felt safe, not just from the Valians, but from the fear that had haunted them for so long. Meanwhile, aboard her craft, Zareth considered what she had witnessed. Aaron's actions were more than courage. They were a demonstration of human potential. This one human had not only saved her child, but had shown patience, strategy, and compassion in the process. She realized that humans were far more than her advisors had claimed. They were capable of greatness. As the hovercraft flew toward the human base, Aaron spoke quietly to Kale. "Once we reach safety, you'll meet people who can help you. You'll learn and you'll grow. But I want you to remember one thing. No matter what happens, courage and trust can get you through the hardest moments." Kale nodded, absorbing every word. The child's small hand reached for Aaron's, holding it tightly. It was a gesture of trust, respect, and gratitude, all the unspoken things that words could not capture. When they finally landed at the human outpost, soldiers swarmed the hovercraft, securing the area and checking for threats. Aaron led Kale out carefully, shielding the child from the sudden attention. He introduced the child to the medical team, who immediately began assessments and preparations for care. While the humans worked, Aaron remained nearby, watching over Kale. He knew that the child would need more than food and medicine. They would need stability, safety, and reassurance, and he intended to provide it. Later, as the evening settled over the outpost, Aaron stood outside, looking at the stars. The war had taken so much from him, friends, comrades, and countless battles. But this moment, small as it was, felt like a victory. He had saved a life, and in doing so, he had proven something fundamental. Humanity could rise above fear, prejudice, and conflict to do what was right. Unseen in orbit, Zareth transmitted a secure message to her advisors. "Monitor him closely," she said. "This human is different. He cannot be ignored." Back at the outpost, Kale was finally resting, eyes closed, breathing evenly. Aaron watched over the child, thinking about the journey ahead. There would be more challenges, more enemies, and more tests of courage. But he also knew that this was just the beginning. Humans and Valians were on a collision course, but perhaps, through this small act of bravery and trust, a new path could be forged. Aaron had no illusions about the war, but he also understood the power of compassion and courage. One human had made a difference, and that difference could ripple outward in ways no one could predict. As night deepened, Aaron made a quiet promise to himself and to the child he had saved. "I will protect you, Kale. No matter what comes, I will keep you safe. and maybe, just maybe, together we can change how our worlds see each other. Somewhere far above, Zareth's eyes lingered on the outpost. The queen did not yet know how much this human would impact her empire, or how the small, fragile child he carried could change the course of the future. But she was determined to find out. Aaron did not know that the story of a human and a child was only beginning to unfold. There would be trials, danger, and impossible choices ahead. But for now, in this quiet moment under the stars, hope had taken root. And that hope was a weapon more powerful than any technology, more enduring than any army. The child stirred slightly, murmuring in their sleep. Aaron smiled faintly, brushing a stray strand of hair from their face. "Rest now," he whispered. "We've made it this far, and we'll make it further." And somewhere in the shadows of the universe, a queen watched and waited, intrigued, calculating, and already planning how this human might change everything she thought she knew about courage, loyalty, and the untapped potential of humanity. The journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. The bond between Aaron and Kale was growing stronger, and that bond would shape the next chapter of a story that neither humans nor Valians could have predicted. For Aaron, the mission had shifted from survival to purpose. For Kale, trust had begun to replace fear. And for Zareth, curiosity had begun to challenge her assumptions about an enemy she had long despised. The stars above stretched endlessly, a reminder that the universe was vast, full of danger, and yet full of possibilities. And for the first time in a long while, Aaron allowed himself to believe that even in the heart of war, humans could shine. The night was restless. The stars above seemed cold and distant, and the wind carried the scent of dust and scorched rock from battles long past. Aaron Voss crouched behind a large boulder, scanning the darkened terrain through his rifle scope. Kale huddled beside him, still adjusting to the new routines of hiding and moving silently. The child had grown braver, but the fear was never far from their amber eyes. Aaron's instincts were sharp. He could sense danger before it arrived, and tonight danger was approaching. From the distance came the faint hum of engines, low, powerful, and deliberate. Valian drones. Not scouts this time, but attack units, fully armed and designed to seek out and eliminate targets without mercy. Aaron's jaw tightened. "Stay down," he whispered to Kale, pressing the child close. "We're not alone, and they're not scouts." The drones moved with mechanical precision, scanning the terrain for any signs of life. Aaron knew that if they were discovered, it would be impossible to outrun them. He quickly scanned the canyon and identified a narrow pass ahead. It was a risky move, but it was their only chance to evade capture. "Follow me," Aaron said, gripping Kale's small hand tightly. He led the way through jagged rocks, ducking low and using every shadow to conceal their movements. The drones were relentless, scanning, sensing, and moving with terrifying speed. Aaron's mind raced. He had faced impossible odds before, but this time he had to protect Kale at all costs. The child's trust in him was complete, fragile as it was, and he could not fail. Every calculation, every step, every decision carried life or death weight. The narrow pass was treacherous. Rocks shifted underfoot, and a misstep could mean a fatal fall. But Aaron navigated it expertly, guiding Kale and moving as if he had done this 100 times. His muscles were tense, his senses heightened, and his mind working at full capacity. Above them in orbit, Queen Zareth watched. Her craft remained cloaked, and her observation systems fed her every movement. She admired Aaron's skill and ingenuity, impressed by how he used the terrain, the child's instincts, and his own agility to evade superior forces. Most humans would have panicked, most humans would have fled without thinking. But Aaron was different. He had courage, intelligence, and a sense of responsibility that transcended fear. As they emerged from the pass, Aaron spotted a shallow ravine that could conceal them temporarily. He led Kale into it, crouching low and holding his breath as the drones swept past overhead. The child clung to him, trembling but silent. "You're doing well," Aaron whispered, trying to calm both Kale and himself. "Just a little further and we'll find safety." But safety was elusive. From the ridge above, a squad of Valian hunters descended, fully armed, alert, and moving with ruthless precision. They had tracked the drone's signals and now were closing in on Aaron and Kale. Aaron assessed the situation. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and exposed, but retreating would lead them into a trap. He needed a plan fast. He scanned the rocks and debris and saw an opportunity, a series of narrow tunnels that had been carved by natural erosion. The tunnels were too small for the larger Valians but navigable for him and Kale. It was risky, but it was their only chance. "Follow me closely," he instructed, gripping Kale's hand. They slipped into the first tunnel, moving quickly but quietly. The walls were rough, scraping their arms and legs, but Aaron ignored it. Every second counted. Behind them, the hunters arrived, scanning the entrance. One of them raised a weapon, firing a beam into the tunnel. Sparks flew as the energy hit the rock walls, but Aaron had anticipated this. He pushed Kale forward, guiding the child deeper into the tunnel system. The chase was relentless. The hunters fired repeatedly, their weapons lighting up the dark tunnels with deadly flashes. Aaron dodged, blocked, and maneuvered with calculated precision, using every ounce of his skill to keep them ahead of danger. Kale followed closely, trusting Aaron completely, and that trust gave him strength. As they emerged from the tunnels, they found themselves on a steep slope leading down toward a hidden canyon. Aaron paused, assessing the terrain. The slope was difficult, but it offered a chance to shake the hunters. He grabbed Kale and held the child close. "Hold tight," he said. "We're almost there." They descended the slope carefully, sliding when necessary, using rocks as leverage. The hunters were still above, firing sporadically, but Aaron's plan was working. By the time they reached the canyon floor, the human extraction team was waiting, a small squad of elite soldiers equipped for rapid deployment. Aaron signaled them, and they moved in swiftly, providing cover as he handed Kale to a medic. "Get the child safe," he instructed. "I'll cover you." The Valian hunters hesitated at the canyon's edge, unwilling to advance further without orders. Aaron's squad fired strategically, forcing them to retreat temporarily. The battle was tense but brief. Aaron knew the hunters would return, but for now, Kale was safe. He allowed himself a moment to breathe, looking down at the child who clung to the medic. Kale's eyes met his, filled with gratitude and awe. Aaron smiled faintly. "You're safe now," he whispered. "This is only the beginning, but you're safe." Above, Zareth observed. She had anticipated that the human might be clever, but his quick thinking, bravery, and protective instincts surpassed her expectations. She realized that Aaron was not just a soldier. He was a leader, a protector, and someone who could inspire trust even in those who had been taught to fear humans. The Queen's mind raced. She could intervene directly, but doing so might compromise the child's trust. Instead, she decided to wait, to watch, and to see how the human would act under continued pressure. Aaron, unaware of her presence, prepared the team for extraction. Kale was secured in a protective capsule, designed to shield the child from any harm. The hovercraft's engines hummed to life, and they began ascending slowly, avoiding sensors and patrols. As they flew over the canyon, Aaron thought about what had just happened. The child's safety had been tested, and so had his own abilities. Every decision, every movement had been critical, and yet, despite the danger, he felt a quiet pride. He had protected a life, an innocent life, in a world that often seemed cruel and unforgiving. Kale looked up at him from the capsule, a small smile forming. You really kept me safe," the child said softly. Aaron nodded. "Yes, I did, and I will continue to keep you safe no matter what comes next." The journey back to the main base was tense but uneventful. Aaron used every bit of his skill to navigate the terrain, avoiding patrols and potential traps. Kale remained close, watching him with admiration and growing trust. When they finally landed, the human base was ready. Medical teams and command personnel swarmed to secure the child, and Aaron briefed the squad on the recent events. The story of the chase, the clever use of terrain, and the evasion of superior forces would become a legend among human soldiers, a testament to skill, courage, and ingenuity. Later, as night fell over the base, Aaron found a quiet spot overlooking the horizon. Kale sat beside him, holding a small blanket, finally relaxed after the day's events. "You're amazing," Kale said softly. "I've never seen anyone fight and protect at the same time." Aaron smiled faintly. "Thank you, but it's not about being amazing. It's about doing what's right, about protecting those who cannot protect themselves, about making choices that matter." Kale nodded, absorbing the words. "I want to be like you," the child admitted. "Brave, smart, and caring." Aaron ruffled Kale's hair gently. "You already are. You just need time to learn it." Meanwhile, Zareth continued her observation from orbit. The events she had witnessed had deepened her intrigue. Aaron was extraordinary, a human who combined courage, intelligence, and empathy in a way that defied all her expectations. She realized that humans were capable of far more than her advisors had warned. One human, in particular, had proven that strength was not always about weapons or numbers. It was about heart, mind, and the ability to act when it mattered most. And so, as Aaron and Kale rested under the stars, a silent tension grew in the universe. Forces were moving, plans were being made, and choices would soon need to be faced. But for tonight, at least, life had been preserved, courage had been tested, and hope had taken root. Aaron whispered quietly, more to himself than anyone else, "We've made it this far. Tomorrow we face whatever comes next, together." Kale nodded, eyes heavy with sleep. "Together," the child echoed. The stars above stretched endlessly, a silent witness to the bravery and ingenuity of one human. Somewhere beyond, a queen's curiosity burned brighter than any threat or weapon. And the story of courage, trust, and unexpected bonds continued to unfold, shaping the destiny of humans, aliens, and the child caught between two worlds. The air was tense, thick with anticipation, as Aaron Voss prepared for what he knew would be the most dangerous phase of the mission. The child, Kale, sat quietly in a protective capsule aboard the hovercraft, eyes wide and alert, sensing the unease in Aaron's movements. Every nerve in Aaron's body was on edge. The Valian forces were closing in, and the extraction route was no longer guaranteed to be safe. Above, hidden in orbit, Queen Zareth made her decision. Observation had revealed more than she expected. Aaron was clever, brave, and resourceful, qualities she had long admired but rarely seen in an enemy. She could have intervened covertly before, but now she would act directly. The Valians approaching Aaron's location were more than just soldiers. They were elite hunters, highly trained and deadly. Zareth intended to guide the outcome herself. Aaron scanned the terrain below as the hovercraft approached a narrow canyon. Sensors had picked up Valian movement ahead, a patrol with advanced detection capabilities. The enemy would ambush them if they proceeded blindly. Aaron clenched his jaw, thinking fast. He needed a strategy that relied on intelligence and creativity rather than sheer firepower. Kale leaned slightly forward. "What's happening?" the child asked softly. Aaron smiled faintly. "We're about to face some challenges, but don't worry, we'll handle it together." The hovercraft descended closer to the canyon floor, and Aaron spotted the perfect setup. The canyon walls were steep and jagged, offering numerous hiding spots and choke points. He quickly formulated a plan. Use the terrain to create a bottleneck, lure the Valians into it, and neutralize them one by one. Humans may not have had the strength or speed of the Valians, but they had ingenuity, strategy, and adaptability, tools that could even the odds. As the patrol appeared at the canyon's entrance, Aaron took control of the situation. He activated a series of remote devices he had carried, simple but effective, that created distractions and simulated multiple movement signatures. Rocks tumbled, dust clouds formed, and shadows flickered across the canyon walls. The Valians hesitated, confused by the sudden apparent movement. Aaron seized the moment. "Kale, stay close and low," he whispered. "We're moving now." The hovercraft advanced slowly, Aaron guiding it with precise maneuvers. He used every trick he had learned in years of combat, false trails, misdirection, and exploiting the natural environment. The patrol, confident and aggressive, moved into the canyon, expecting an easy target. Instead, they walked into the trap Aaron had set. Explosions of dust and rocks obscured the Valians' vision, causing them to misstep and stumble. Aaron directed Kale carefully, moving the child through safer zones, while the enemy fell into the canyon's natural traps. Aaron's quick thinking allowed them to remain largely unseen, the human ingenuity turning the canyon itself into a formidable weapon. Suddenly, a flash of movement appeared above them. Aaron glanced upward, realizing Zareth had deployed her craft closer, observing directly. The Queen's intervention was subtle, a guiding presence, not interference. She would allow Aaron to demonstrate his skill fully before revealing herself. Aaron understood her intention. He continued his maneuvers with even greater focus, determined to prove that humans were capable of extraordinary feats. Every action, every decision showcased adaptability, courage, and intelligence, the essence of what humans could achieve under pressure. The Valians regrouped, realizing the human had anticipated their moves. They advanced again, more cautiously this time. Aaron's strategy evolved in real time. He led the hovercraft through a series of twists and turns, using narrow passages and high cliffs to channel the Valians into disadvantageous positions. Each move was calculated, minimizing risk to Kale while maximizing the effect on the enemy. Kale watched in awe. "You're amazing," the child whispered. "How do you know what to do?" Aaron glanced down, smiling faintly. "Experience, observation, and thinking fast. And remembering what matters most, protecting you." The Valians were relentless, but Aaron's creativity and quick reflexes kept them off balance. He used the environment as an ally. Loose boulders tumbled down cliffs, narrow ledges forced the enemy to slow, and natural shadows provided perfect cover. Each tactic showcased human ingenuity, something the Valians had underestimated. Above, Zareth observed closely. She had never seen such resourcefulness in a human. Aaron was not merely reacting. He was anticipating, adapting, and controlling the flow of the encounter. It was a display of intellect and courage that resonated deeply with her. She realized that humans were not just soldiers or opponents. They were innovators, thinkers, and protectors. Aaron guided the hovercraft through the final stretch of the canyon, the enemy forces scattered and disoriented. Kale remained calm, trusting fully in the human's judgment. Every obstacle, every threat had been countered with ingenuity rather than brute force. Finally, they reached a safer plateau where the human extraction team awaited. Soldiers secured the area immediately, establishing defensive positions and medical support for Kale. Aaron exhaled, allowing himself a moment to breathe. The immediate danger was over. Kale climbed out of the protective capsule, eyes bright and filled with admiration. "You saved us all," the child said softly. Aaron knelt down, smiling. "We did it together. Courage, trust, and thinking smart, that's how we win." From above, Zareth descended in her craft, finally revealing herself to Aaron and Kale. The Queen's presence was imposing yet measured. She stepped forward gracefully, her expression a mix of curiosity and respect. "You were extraordinary," Zareth said, addressing Aaron directly. "Your actions, your planning, your courage, they are unlike anything I have seen among your kind. You did not just survive, you protected a life that is precious to me, and in doing so, you have earned my admiration." Aaron stood tall, maintaining his composure despite the overwhelming presence of the Valian Queen. "I did what anyone would do," he replied. "I protected the child because it was the right thing to do. That's what humans can do. We fight, yes, but we also protect, we care, and we make choices that matter." Zareth studied him, her eyes narrowing slightly. "It is rare to see such morality in a human. Most think only of themselves or their mission. But you acted with both strategy and compassion. That is remarkable." Kale looked up at Zareth, sensing the Queen's approval and fascination. The child's trust in Aaron had shifted the perception of an entire empire. Zareth's admiration for the human was growing, not only for his skill but for his heart. "I wish to speak with you privately," Zareth said, turning her gaze toward Aaron. "There is much to discuss. You have proven your abilities, and now I seek to understand your motives, your principles, and perhaps more." Aaron nodded cautiously, understanding the weight of her words. "I am willing to talk," he said. "But know this, my first priority will always be the safety of this child." The Queen smiled faintly. "And that is why I am intrigued. Few humans demonstrate such commitment beyond self-interest. It is inspiring." They moved to a secluded area away from soldiers and observers. Zareth's craft hovered silently nearby, cloaked to avoid attention. Aaron remained vigilant, but he sensed no immediate threat, only curiosity and respect. "You saved Kale when it would have been easier to leave the child," Zareth began. "Most humans would have followed protocol, completed the mission, and left an innocent life behind. Why did you act differently?" Aaron paused, thinking carefully. "Because it was the right thing to do, and because life matters no matter whose it is. Humans are capable of bravery and compassion, even in war. We fight to protect, not just to destroy." Zareth nodded slowly. "I see. And yet, your actions have altered the course of events in ways that few could have predicted. You have challenged perceptions, built trust, and shown that humans are not simply adversaries. You have changed the future for Kale, for yourself, and perhaps even for both our civilizations." Aaron looked at Kale, who remained close by, watching the exchange with wide eyes. "I did what I had to do," he said, "but I hope it does more than keep the child safe. I hope it shows that humans are capable of more than war and destruction. We can inspire, we can protect, and we can make choices that matter." Zareth studied him silently, her mind racing. This human was extraordinary, not just for his skill, but for his heart, his intelligence, and his unwavering commitment. She realized that trust, courage, and ingenuity were more powerful than any weapon. "You have earned more than my respect," Zareth said finally. "You have earned my trust, and perhaps in time you will earn more than that if you are willing to accept it." Eren considered her words carefully. He had faced countless enemies, countless challenges, but this was new. The Vailian Queen herself was offering recognition, respect, and possibly alliance. Yet his focus remained on Kale. "All I seek is to protect this child," he said firmly. Zareth nodded. "And that is why you are remarkable. Your courage, your strategy, your heart, they have proven that humans are not to be underestimated. You have earned a place not just in history, but in the future that is yet to come." Kale stepped closer to Eren, holding his hand tightly. "You did it," the child whispered. "You saved me and maybe everyone." Eren smiled faintly, looking at the child, then back at the Queen. "We did it together. Courage, trust, and thinking smart. That's how we change the world." The stars above stretched endlessly, a silent witness to the bravery, ingenuity, and compassion of one human. And somewhere beyond, the Queen's admiration burned brightly, signaling a new era of understanding, respect, and unprecedented alliances. For Eren, Kale, and Zareth, the future was uncertain, full of challenges and opportunities. But one thing was clear. Courage, intelligence, and heart had reshaped the destiny of two civilizations, and the story of a human who had saved a child would echo across the stars for generations to come.